The last roundup.
Horror Show.
Are we recording now?
Yeah, we're rolling.
Okay. Welcome to.
Okay, yeah, we're good.
Welcome to. I'm gonna let you do it, man.
Go ahead.
Welcome to another action-packed episode of the Last Roundup Horror Show. I'm Frank. This is Jason, and that is Jared.
Hi.
We have 3 movies again, and we're starting with Videodrome, 1983, written and directed by David Cronenberg. Here's the summary. When he acquires a different kind of show for his station, a sleazy cable TV programmer begins to see his life and the future of media spin out of control in a terrifying new reality. Any additional information, Jason?
I don't know. The only tagline I seen from this was stupid. It says, from David Cronenberg, creator of Scanners.
It wasn't Long Live the New Flesh. I thought that was...
I didn't see it.
Oh, I thought that was it.
Distributed by Universal Pictures, and this had a Criterion release on Blu-ray in 2010.
This movie surprised me how much I enjoyed it because I didn't think I was going to for whatever reason. I guess I've seen Cronenberg and I like all the stuff I've seen, but I have somehow never watched this before. You had seen it before, right?
Yes.
Had you seen it before?
Mm-hmm.
Damn, I'm in the dark. A really good movie. I got lots of vibes of like Clockwork Orange and They Live actually, kind of with the governmental whatever infiltration of your mind. It's the first thing I can think of that I like James Woods in, but Jared said that he's great in everything, so I got to look into him more.
Yeah, he's James Wood. Watch Digstown. I'm telling you, man.
And this is the first instance in my life that I've ever been like, Debbie Harry is a little bit sexy, isn't she? Look at her. Because previously everybody's always like talking about how fucking sexy Debbie Harry is. I'm like, she's not though, right? But this movie proves me wrong. It's a highly erotic film, Jared. Highly erotic. In a weird way. In a weird society type way. You know what I'm saying? Like a weird body horror.
Off-putting.
Yeah. This seems like the kind of movie that if you watched it on multiple times, you'd notice something completely different every time, because I know I'm going to watch this plenty more times. It's just, there's so much to it. There's so much content. Yeah, there's not much more to say from me aside from never, ever, whatever you do, no matter what you do, don't put a gun inside your stomach, pussy, because things get fucked up after that. What's your thoughts on this?
Well, I thought the first act of this movie was painfully slow. The 30 minutes in this movie, and it's still just James Woods trying to find out more about Videodrome. The hallucinations and the body horror is all great, which is kind of, I think, a given with Cronenberg. Again, this movie felt way longer than the runtime. Mm-hmm. Hour 27 minutes. It was every bit of 2 hours and what it felt like. I don't know. Like lots of people like this movie. Some even think it's his best movie. The acting's fine. The music's fine. I do think it is kind of where it was. This 1983. And like this movie still applies today.
Oh yeah,
especially with as much as the technology is relevant today. That technology kind of replaces reality. If you want something weird to watch, like I know people are just into weird stuff. This is it. I really don't understand all the hype about it, but it's okay. I gave it a 7.
Wow. See, I didn't even give my score. I gave it a 10. So
you gave it a 10.
Yeah, I thought this was a classic movie that I should have fucking seen like years ago. I'm like, why the fuck didn't I see this? perfect.
Oddly, you say that. I think I enjoyed it more back in the day when I watched it than I did now. The first act of it was just really boring. It just drug on and on and on. So
I think I just liked the dirtbag character, like how like he was like, "You got any fucking tapes? What do you got?" Like this fucking, he was really dirt. Like I could picture guys like that because he's like, it's kind of an underground tape. You never see this. I know guys that are like that. You never find this anywhere. It's fucking rare. Like, but really dirty, you know.
Yeah, I give this one a 9. It's one of my favorite Cronenbergs. I think Naked Lunch is my favorite, but these two are the top. They've kind of switched back and forth. I really like the commentary on culture and how people behave and how they behave with technology. The fact that so many years later, it all still holds up really well, I think is really impressive. The body horror in it, it's Cronenberg, so the body horror in it it's just fantastic. I like the conspiracy feel. I've always loved stuff like that since I was a kid too. So this was one when I watched it when I was a kid. I always loved that stuff, so that kind of tickled that funny bone too. The first act is slow. I always felt it worked for it because it's kind of building the suspense of what is this, and mixing that in with the fact that he is kind of a sleaze. The commentary on about it just kind of how humans are terrible in general. Like everything, it's slow, but it builds slow to what it needs to build for it to work for me. It's just the stuff that Cronenberg does fantastic.
you think it had the payoff?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think
he had a handgun.
I think it absolutely
Yeah, he really did.
I mean, there really aren't any good people in this movie. So it kind of sets them up on like it takes that first half hour, the first act to set up the different kinds of bad. It doesn't just make one generic bad character. This is the bad guy, this is the good guy, that kind of archetype and go. It uses the like Debbie is weird and after rushes and kinky and she gets a little sleazy, and James Woods is sleazy in a different way, shocked at how kinky Debbie is, but almost comes off worse because at least she's honest about it. But then he kind of has his own honesty to his badness.
See, I'm bored already.
And then like that all gets set up in the first act, and that's what makes the story work for me in the last two. And that's how it ties in with all the other stuff that's going on and how Videodrome plays into it. And like I said, the effects, of course, are great. It's Cronenberg. The body horror is fantastic.
That's the only reason why.
The hallucinations
and
the weird out stuff, I think, is... I think it's more tripped out in this, not as far as Naked Lunch, but more so than his other stuff. And I enjoy that. And it doesn't... The kind of commentary through it, the other thing I like about it, is it's not giving you, this is what I'm saying. It's just kind of presenting something that lets you think about it in wherever you'll go. So it's not saying this is absolutely what things are. It just kind of gives you. So all of it works together, and it's just great Cronenberg. So for me, it's 9.
And there's nothing better in the whole film than that last shot where he fucking does himself in and says, "Long live the new flesh."
So
fantastic.
Well, so something new we started doing is the last Roundup horror show approved, and that's anything that scores a 24 or higher, which is an average of 8. So this would be.
What'd you give it?
I gave it a 7.
7. Yeah.
So we
So this is
7,
an
9,
approved
10.
movie.
Yeah.
Approved.
We approve it.
Worth watching. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked to find out that somebody gave.
You guys can
Videodrome.
go ahead and watch videos.
Well, I
Trust
mean,
me.
Frank, this was his first time watching
It's
it,
true.
so you got to think
Yeah.
of all the people that haven't seen this movie.
Yeah, if you haven't seen it, you need to fucking watch it. I mean, it's just something that I should have saw fucking when I was a teenager. Okay, we're gonna try something new here. Jason got himself an interview with a director.
Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing Justin Seaman. He's the writer and director of The Barn, and he also has a segment on 1031, and we're going to be reviewing both of those movies next.
We'll be right back.
Justin, I want to thank you for joining us here on a brand new segment of the last Roundup Horror Show. Doesn't even have a name yet. But with us today, Justin M. Seaman, writer and director of The Barn and a couple other features. Justin, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Now, what we do here on the last Roundup Horror Show is each episode we review, we rate three different picks, 3 movies. 2 of them for this episode are my picks, and I've chosen The Barn and 1031. So we're going to touch on those today. I guess from watching the special features of the Blu-ray, what took me back. So you were 9 years old when you kind of wrote the story of The Barn?
Yeah, I was around 8 or 9. 3rd grade is when I actually wrote it.
Now, you also said that this kind of made for a parent-teacher conference over this story.
Yeah. So what happened was they were doing this thing, basically like activity periods where you could play paper football or, art or some sort of arts and crafts or anything else. And one of them was write a storybook. And they gave you like an actual, it looked like a hardback blank book. You could draw on the cover and and then there's like 20 pages or whatever. And you could do anything you wanted. So I did The Barn, and that was an immediate like no. And they had this. They called my mom in, and we had a parent-teacher conference, and they were basically like, he can't do this kind of stuff, and they wouldn't let me do. Well, first they thought like, I didn't know what was going on, but like later on in life, my mom was like, she didn't know if they want to do like a psych evaluation or something on me because like I'm a troubled kid.
Right.
But I just loved horror films, so I just wanted to make my own like basically a horror Goosebumps, in a sense. And but they refused to let me do the story, and they ended up making me do like my own knockoff of a Star Wars chapter or something. Right. That was the only thing they'd let me do. They wouldn't let me keep the book, or so I wasn't allowed to make that book. So I ended up just taking like one of those old basically school notebook journals, like those I don't even know, they usually had like the times tables on the back of it.
Okay.
I used one of those, and that's when I wrote The Barn, just between class periods and stuff. So yeah, it was real crazy. Like it was like, no, you can't do this. Like, because there was all this other stuff in the story at one point where this woman was murdered. She was pregnant, and blood dripped down outside of the walls of the barn. Yeah.
So you actually had killings in it, because I in my head I was thinking like, okay, he just he kind of had the lore of the characters.
No, it was they were hacking up kids and stuff.
Wow,
and
so you went all out.
So, it was. I mean, I didn't think anything was wrong with it because I watched horror films, and it wasn't like I knew they were fantasy, but I thought every kid watched horror films, and I assumed every parent watched horror films. So that teacher did not, and so Well, So, but go ahead.
Well, I'm just saying, it's kind of since we're on that subject of you watching horror as a kid. So did you kind of discover it on your own, or did your parents let you watch it?
My mom didn't, but my dad did. So like when my mom would go to work, my dad would show them to me. And when they were divorced, when I'd go to my dad's house on the weekends, that's when I watched the horror films. And when I'd come home and my mom would take me to the video store, and I'd go to get horror films, she'd be like, oh, no, you can't watch those yet. And I'm like, well, I've already seen these. I just want to watch them again.
Right.
But so it was years and years, and later, and I think maybe I was 12 or 13. My mom was like, I said I wanted to get I Spit on Your Grave, and she's like, oh, you can't see that film. I was like, Mom, I already saw it. Like, she was like, what? Who rented that film for you? And I was like, I watched that when I was like 10. Like, so it was just, I just grew up with it, and over time, my mom just kind of accepted it that I wasn't a troubled kid. I just liked, to watch scary films. So if it could have been my mom's way, I probably would have been like, a teenager, late teens watching them finally.
Yeah. No, I'm with you there. I know anything with an R rating, I wasn't even allowed to touch, and anything that was of the devil, so to speak, that was a big no as well. But continuing on with your childhood, like what would you say is either your most watched or your favorite horror movie growing up?
Well, my favorite, I mean, I consider it a horror film, but it's not really, as far as like the gore and all that was, the one I watched the most was The Monster Squad. That was one that my mom would actually let me watch. So I frequently rented that when I was with her or with my dad. As far as like a horror film goes that I've watched countless times, I could watch it over and over and over, is Night of the Demons. That's like my all-time favorite. And, you know, it's just for me, it's a fun movie. You know, when I was a kid, it was scary. Now I watch it and it's not very scary. It's actually kind of funny. But I love it. I just love the characters. I love the story. I love the effects. That's always been my go-to. Those two films have always been my go-to films.
Those are great. I mean, I can't argue with those today. Was Night of the Demons? Is that still a favorite today, or do you have?
Oh yeah, no, that's still my favorite horror film. Yeah,
that's still number one.
I mean, you're still number one. Just it has a soft spot. I think it was. I don't know. That was the film that made me really appreciate Halloween in cinema. I think just because to me, like, that was like the epitome of a Halloween party that gone wrong.
Yep.
And I always just loved it. That was really a lot of why I wanted to make the barn set on Halloween, was because of Night of the Demons.
Oh well,
later on, which was cool because I loved it so much that I got the chance to work with Linnea Quigley in the barn. So I was like,
that was my next question. Is that kind of what led to you asking her?
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta say too, on the special features, you sounded doubtful when you thought about asking her. I think you might even said, like, who am I?
Yeah.
Has that view changed any about yourself?
No, I mean, I'm a nobody, but I at least have made something now that people know of, so it gives me some credibility. Trying to get a hold of Linnea, I wasn't even going to do it because, like I said, who am I? Why would she even get back to me? And then I did try, and I had to go through like her talent people, like her reps, and nobody would respond back to me. And I sent email after email after email, and nothing. So then I just gave up, and like in the bonus features, we went ahead and we just shot the movie with somebody else standing in because we had to get it done. We needed to get it premiered. We needed to get it in the festival circuit and all that. Mm-hmm. And then it was like halfway through the festival circuit, she actually messaged me on Facebook and like introduced herself, said hello, and then one of her people got back to me like at the same time and was like, hey, Linnea is interested, and by that time I had just started talking to her personally. So I think what it was is that she heard about it, she saw that it looked like something right up her alley, and she probably also heard the fact that I was trying to get a hold of her, and now this thing was playing, so it wasn't just just a little crappy indie film. Right. But I'll tell you what, Linnea is such a sweetheart, and she and I keep in contact pretty much weekly. She's always asking how my son's doing or how my wife is doing, and it's really nice. We're going to be at a convention together in Charlotte. I think it's May 18th for Days of the Dead. So I'm looking forward to catching up with her again, talking. So it's really cool. I went from being like, I'll never get a chance to work with her to actually just having like a nice friend relationship with her now, where we talk about our animals and, just day-to-day life. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really awesome. You grow up and still today having one of your favorite movies, and now you're friends with one of the actresses in your movie and everything. That's awesome. Now, you did mention that you ran into a few problems during the shooting of the barn.
Yeah.
Could you touch on those a little bit?
Yeah, it was nonstop problems. We prepped forever. I mean, everything that we could think of to make sure that it went smoothly, we did. I mean, even down to the blocking of when there's, 30 extras inside of the hootenanny and mapping out where each person runs from which spot, and how they cross each other and how they get killed and who's in the background when this person gets killed. And that, I mean, it took us just the kill scene, that big massacre scene in the movie,
which is
took
great,
us probably
by the way.
a week. Yeah, thank you. It was just chaos, and we meticulously laid everything out of just to know, we did everything we possibly could. And then when you get on set, there are just things that you can't control, and it was like a snowball that just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. And it was just every day I got there, I was like, what is going to go wrong today? That's exactly how it was. We thought we could shoot the movie in like 12 days plus a couple of days of pickup inserts and stuff like that, and just by day 2, I remember telling the AD, like, dude, this movie's over. There was just a lot of people, everybody that came on board, I hired, and I set out with the mindset that if I hire people, they're going to care, because it's a job, you know, whether they like the content or not, their name's involved and it's a paycheck, so they're going to want to do the best they can. And I learned, unfortunately, that is not the case. It was just a paycheck, and if they didn't care, they just didn't care. And that resulted in reshooting almost half of what we had originally of all the footage, and just because of bad camera work, bad lighting, bad special effects, just awful things. And the movie pretty much was never going to get finished, and I had accepted that. And then just some people along the way, some of the crew members that I had hired through some of the people that were the problem on the set, they actually came back and kind of rallied and were like, dude, we really believe in your film, and we don't want to see it fall apart because of these people and situations. So they all offered to come back for free, and then we reshot everything that was wrong, and they rebuilt. I hired new special effects people, and they redid all the special effects. And the special effects aren't meant to be like top notch, because they're supposed to look like like low budget 80s effects, but still be practical. But even the stuff that there was the ones that were bad, we were like, look, this is even just bad for low budget, like and just it would have been more of a joke instead of like an homage to what we wanted. So yeah, it was really an awful experience all the way around initially. And then once I came back and everybody that had been paid the first time that wanted to be there came back and they were willing to work for free, it was like you could tell that there was passion behind it, and we kind of weeded out the people who just, for lack of a better term, didn't give a shit. Right. And these were the people that cared and wanted to see the movie to the finish line, and that's how it got finished. So if it wasn't for all those individuals, it would never got done. But yeah, it was by the end I can look back and go like, wow, that was a great experience, great lesson learned of how to make movies, who to work with, how to read people, not to just listen to people's their bullshit when they sell themselves to you. You got to really you got to do background checks on people and see who they work with and ask what was it like working with this guy? Did he show up on time, or was he always 3 hours late for you too? Like that kind of stuff.
Is there something that you ran into that you didn't think about ahead of time, or that you wasn't prepared for? Like you mentioned background checks, and honestly, I didn't even think about that aspect. Like, I mean, yeah, that's pretty important. You're going to be working around with people, but was there anything that you ran into that you wasn't prepared for? Besides like all the problems that happen, like.
I was gonna say, other than the individuals that I just kind of put all my trust into, and that was my fault for a first time horror film director, was just relying on people and not checking things. Like I should have checked footage every night, but we were doing like 16-hour shoots, and I was like, did we get it? And the camera guy's like, yeah, sure, we got it. I'm like, all right, So that was my biggest problem, is that falls back on me. If I would have looked at the footage in advance, I would have known that I should have just stopped right then and there and hired somebody else. But the weather, we were constantly watching the forecasts. The movie takes place about 90% outside, right? And we, wanted to be authentic, so we were shooting it in October. And for whatever reason, this year October basically became winter, and we were outside, and I'm making these actors stand in t-shirts and really thin jeans and really thin shoes, and they have to act like it's not that cold, but it's like some nights were 17 degrees, some nights were 12 degrees, some nights it was snowing, and we're blowing snow off of the grass so that you can't see it, Yeah. That's the stuff we couldn't prepare for. And you can sit there and go, okay, well, it's going to rain today, we'll do some inside stuff. But when it rains for 3 or 4 days straight and you've already shot all the inside stuff, now you're kind of like, what are we doing here? It gets really difficult, especially when you go through talent agencies and you have contracts with actors and they're there for a certain amount of days, whether you're shooting or not. Your days are counting and they're going away, and it was tough. I definitely overwhelming, and underestimated the amount of problems that could come up that you just don't foresee when you start.
Now, if you could, knowing what you know now, you're shooting the barn over again. Well,
yeah.
What's the main thing, if anything, that you would do differently?
I'd probably shoot the whole thing in the summer, and we'd just work around it being fall. And I definitely, now that I know people and I know the right people, I would have went to the right people, the right camera people, the right special effects people, and but you know what? Like, we've talked about this before. Like, there was a time where I couldn't even watch the movie because I'm just like, it's not what I had envisioned.
Yeah.
And then when we fixed it, it was more like what I wanted. It's still not exactly the way I had always seen it because we had so much work around.
Mm-hmm.
But I've come to appreciate what it is through the amount of people that have, enjoyed the film. So I always think, like, if I had another chance to go back and redo it, would I? And I probably wouldn't, because I enjoy the outcome of what we got, and the story that goes along with it of it being a dead film and we resurrected it. So, I like that.
I tell you what, for a debut film, I mean, wow. I mean, what you knocked this one out of the park. And I bought this movie. This was a blind buy for me. Yeah, I'm a member of a few horror groups on Facebook, and I kept seeing the barn. People would take pictures of their mail day, and I keep seeing posts of the barn. And I seen like 5 or 6 of these. I'm like, what's going on? And I mean, I make blind buys, but normally, I watched the trailer at least. I didn't even watch the trailer of this. I ordered it right away.
Oh, wow.
And luckily it paid off. Like I think,
oh, that's good.
I thank several people for posting this and letting me know about it.
That's awesome.
And for as far as the merchandise, which by the way, you can go to thebarnmerch.com. Like I've never seen a release with like so many merchandise. It's even been well documented that I'm not really a low budget horror guy. For the most part, something always suffers. I mean, it just kind of has to. But those things most of the time really bother me. This was, I'm telling you right now, this is a really big compliment, because not one single thing bothered me about this movie. Like I know you hear it all the time. Like it's definitely going to be a regular in my Halloween rotation. I mean, I just think from the merchandise to the movie, you just knocked this out of the park.
Oh, thank you so much.
And,
the merchandise came about because, like I said, the movie was basically dying, and then when we kind of resurrected it, I was like, there is a sea of independent movies out here, and I mean independent, like real independent, low budget, not like something that costs a couple $1 million independent,
Right.
We shot this for under $50K, and that was because of mistakes, so it would have been a lot cheaper. But I was like, I have to do something to make this movie stand out and, let people go like, well, what is this? So that's what led to, making all that stuff. And it really was fun, because it went back to me being a kid and being able to go like, man, I always wanted to make a board game. I always wanted to make a video game. And, and it was like the perfect kind of movie. I'm like, they did this with Freddy Krueger. There was Freddy Krueger dolls. Kids were sleeping with, little Freddy dolls. And there was board games of Freddy, and there was video games. And I'm thinking, this is great. I have an 80s film. I'm going to market it like it was an 80s film and do all that stuff and make these like, characters that are just on everything, and not to like the extent of like a George Lucas Star Wars stuff, but the action figures, the board game, the video game, and then we did the vinyl release and the audio cassette and just all that, and then it just like it went off like wildfire on all these social media sites, and then all the horror blogs, and just Fangoria picked it up, and Bloody Disgusting and Rue Morgue, and then before I knew it was just, I didn't have to even try to hit up any sites anymore. They were just putting it up like because they saw it on another site. So like word of mouth just took over.
Yeah,
it was great. Like so it worked. Like the viral, marketing worked for that. And I've got some things where people are like, how how in the fuck did this guy get all this stuff? Like, he must be rich. And no, it wasn't. It was a lot of like-minded people that were like, yeah, man, this sounds awesome. You know, I want to help you make a video game. I want to help you make a board game. And, you know, yeah, sure. I want to I make action figures. I'd love to do this. So it was a huge, like, it just bringing artists together and, just, toy makers and just everything. So it was really cool.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the budget. I was going to ask you. I didn't know if that's something you wanted to talk about. But there was on one of our last shows there was a not an argument, but a very lively conversation about low budget horror movies. We were reviewing the movie Slashers. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yeah.
It is, my opinion, it is garbage. and part of, I looked at the budget for that, and it was $165,000. And when I said that, one of the guys on the show said, yeah, that's not a lot for low budget. And I'm not even going to even disagree with him, but what I was trying to say was I don't see where that money went. I was like, I guarantee you, when I talk to Justin, I'm gonna ask him, like, what's low budget to you? Because I guarantee you, he did not spend $165,000 on the barn. Yeah, and it's a million times better. And the Slashers was like, I believe it was 2001. So I mean, and you're spending you're spending your budget today, and you made a movie way better. So I just wanted to find out your opinion, like what you considered a low budget horror movie.
Well, I mean, a lot of people I know, they, and I say like really, really, really low budget. And these are kind of like the filmmakers that you never hear about their movies, but they keep making movies. They like try not to make movies for more than like $2,000 or $3,000. And you can kind of tell. It's very apparent, and that's nothing against them. That's their choice. I don't know how they fund things or what. But when I set out to make the barn, we had a budget of $35,000 max, and when we were so happy we had got it down to $30,000 to shoot the whole movie, and then when all the issues happened, it ended up taking us up to $40,000. It was about $10,000 extra we had to go back and spend just purely because of bringing talent back in. And even though they came back for free, you got to think when that footage was no good, you lost every special effect. You lost whatever we fed people that day. You lost whatever location we rented. You know what I mean? Like, so all those costs came back and you had to pay them again.
Right.
So because of that, it ended up being right around $40,000 for the film. And then there was like about $7,000 in the marketing, between making all that merchandise and then having all the inventory of the merchandise, including like the initial run of the DVDs, and then money for film festivals and conventions and stuff, and then the premiere. So $47,000 was the total for all of that, like to get the movie made, get it out there, and then start recouping money. So for me, that's a lot of money. I mean, that's when you're putting all of your money into it, and you're thinking like, man, I hope one day I can just at least break even down the road. I couldn't imagine if I had $165,000 what I could do. I'd make 3 movies at one in a row.
That's kind of like exactly what I said. He even said, I said, you know what, for you give me $165,000, I'll make a better movie than Slashers. And in my head, I'm thinking, the first person I'm calling is Justin, and I'm gonna give him $20,000 just for getting on there, and I'll be way ahead of Slashers to begin with. So
it's crazy. I'm
glad you put some perspective on that. So that was the barn. Let's talk a little bit about 1031. Your segment is the old hag. Now, how did you get involved with 1031?
Okay, so 1031 was actually made, like the idea was from Rocky Gray. He's a former band member of Evanescence and Living Sacrifice and We Are the Fallen, and he's basically a Grammy Award-winning drummer, and he became a film composer, and he actually ended up doing the score to the barn.
Which is beautiful.
And so I became... Oh, you like that? You like the score?
I love it.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say that seems to be like something that people really like.
Yeah, and I also hear him say that he is definitely down for the Barn 2 if that ever happens.
Oh yeah, he is. Rocky and I keep in contact just about every day, and we talk about it a lot, like ideas of what I would like the sound of the Barn 2 to be if we'd ever get to that. But yeah, so he worked on the film. He had this was his first independent film that he was brought on board for, and he really enjoyed it to the extent of he wanted to do his, kind of change gears and try making a film. So he wanted it to be a couple of different directors. So he had brought myself on board to do one, and then the DP that came in to help finish the Barn the correct way, Zane Hirschberger, he came in as well, and he did a segment called Trespassers. And then some other people that Zane and I had worked with previously on Volumes of Blood Horror Stories, which is another horror anthology. Johnny Holt, he did the roller skate rink one called Killing the Dance. And then Brett DeJager, who did Bone Jangles, was somebody we had known because he's actually working on a film with us coming up called Cryptids. So it was really just a network of people that, we all kind of knew. And then Rocky wanted to do his own story as well. So what ended up happening was he just basically said, here's the premise. 1031 is all about stories that take place on Halloween. Here is a budget. He gave us each $1,000 and said, just shoot your segments. Do whatever you want. So I took the opportunity to do a story that I wrote about a year or so before called The Old Hag. And it essentially is about sleep paralysis and, what is sleep paralysis and, is it something you're really seeing or, that kind of thing. And I always thought it was creepy when people talked about seeing, an entity or something that looks like an old woman that climbs on top of you. And at one point when we were shooting the Barn, I was getting so sleep deprived at night from just being exhausted and everything. There was a few nights where I woke up and I couldn't move and I saw a figure at the end of the bed, and it freaked me out to the point where I started researching it, and that's when I figured out what the old hag syndrome was. And so it was something that stuck in the back of my head for a while.
Yeah.
So when this came up, I was like, I have yeah, because I was like, what the hell? And then I saw something on TV. I was like, My Haunted House or something, one of those shows, those ghost shows, and they were talking about it. I'm like, dude, that was what happened to me. Which just sounds crazy, but I never experienced anything like it. That's never happened again, and I just think it's because I was so exhausted and my mind was just fried. But I swear I saw a person climb up. If I felt the person climb on my chest and sit on me, and it was like the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced. So when I got the chance to do this segment, I thought I want to tell a story like that, and I want to reunite some of the people that were in the Barn. So I was able to get back Mitch, who played Sam, and I got back Nick Edwards, who played Russell. And I always loved Nick as Russell. I wish he would have had more screen time. So I thought I'll let him make him the lead. And and I knew what some of the other stories were going to be in 1031, so I didn't want to follow the slasher genre again, just because I didn't want to always be like the 80s Barn guy. So this time I kind of took that, Insidious, Conjuring, little bit of hint of The Shining, ghost story, type vibe for the story. And my segment's one of the ones that doesn't have gore. It pretty much is, it's just kind of what goes bump in the dark and jump scares and, stuff like that.
No,
but it was a blast. I'm really glad I got a chance to do that and do something different in the horror world.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I did recognize some faces, and I didn't know if maybe it was a comfort with you already know what to expect from these guys, or if you didn't like the interview process, the budget, what was it?
Well, it was really, I really liked Nick, and Nick had moved away to North Carolina. And so when I contacted him, I was like, hey man, we're shooting this thing, but I know you moved, is there any chance you'll be coming back to Pittsburgh to visit your family? He's like, dude, you let me know the date. I got a flight. I'll be there. So he came up and, he was up there. There's no issue. He made sure he took time off of work. And I became really good friends with Mitch after the Barn. Like, I didn't know any of those people. Mitch is relatively close to where I live now. So And we're constantly in contact. And he was like, man, anytime you want to do something, let me know. So I just told him, I said, I have a part I think you'd be perfect for, but I'm not going to make you a lead again, so don't get used to that. So, but I want you to be, I want you to play, second string to Nick. And everybody loved Nick on the barn. So it was great. And I thought they'd make a cool duo together. So, I mean, in one regard, yes, I didn't have to go and do casting, but I also knew I wanted to work with those two individuals again, and this was a perfect opportunity.
The house, very cool. I believe it's a character in itself. It creates creates great atmosphere. Like, where was this shot? Like, is it actually a bed and breakfast? Is it someone's home? Or?
Yes, it's an actual bed and breakfast. So this is another one of those just strange things. I grew up right across the street from this house. My mother's house is right across the street.
Wow.
I've looked at this house my entire life, but I never had a reason to go into it. It's just, other than being like a nosy neighbor, can I look into your house? Because why would I go to a bed and breakfast across the street from where I live?
Right.
So when we started talking about this, Zane, my buddy who was the DP and did Trespassers, he was like, you should really talk to those people up there that that live across from your childhood home. And I said, yeah. I said, you know what, man? I said, that would be great. I wonder if they'd be weird about it, because it is a functioning bed and breakfast. Like there's always guests there. So when we went up, there's always that weird. Anytime you're going to somebody's place to ask them about like renting their property or something for a movie, there's always this weird like vibe, because they're like, yeah, you make movies. Like, what are you really planning on doing here? Because it's just not something common. I live in a little rural town, like right outside of Wheeling, West Virginia. I'm right on the edge of Pennsylvania. But they were really cool. They were excited. Her biggest thing was like, she's like, you're not going to like do any like Ouija board stuff and open something up in our house, are you? Because because they live there too. Like, they live in the house, and it's a functioning bed and breakfast. So that was like their biggest concern, was if I was going to be doing something that was going to leave something behind. And I was like, no, it's not that kind of story, but I didn't tell her there was going to be like a naked old woman, walking around her house either.
Have you talked to her? Like, has there been any?
Oh yeah,
fans.
They came to the premiere. They No, they came to the premiere. They loved it. They actually use it now to market it, to market people to come and stay at their bed and breakfast because of it's in this movie. Yeah. No, it was. I always thought there'd be something cool, like if she said like weird things happen, but no, nothing ever happened. And I'm glad, because they seemed very paranoid that something was going to. Because that house, you can't see it. Right to the left of it is this huge Methodist church, like right beside it. So they were very like, they didn't want anything like with the church being like upset that they were doing like something satanic next, in their, so it was just, but they were super cool. Yeah. So no, it was, but yeah, that's what, when I walked through the house, I was like, oh my goodness, this is a dream come true for a director. And since we're indie, we're also set design and everything else. So I'm like, we literally just have to bring some lights in here. Everything, this is dressed, and that's all we did. I think the only thing that I brought into that house that it wasn't a part of it is the record player right in the beginning of the movie. That was the only set dressing we brought in. Everything else was there. We just brought our lights in and just lit everything, to make it just to accent really what was in the house, because it was perfect.
Yeah, it's awesome. And to grow up looking at a place that you and doing a movie, I'm
glad I'm glad it looked as good as I had hoped it would look, all those years.
Yeah, this 1031, across the board, I think it had great music in every segment. Was this all the same guy that did the music, or did you guys each have your own?
So Rocky did my music for the Old Hag. He also did his for the Sam Hain slasher, and then he did the Blizzard of '91. I'm trying to think. I'm gonna blank on the names right now. There was two other artists that did Trespassers and then Killing the Dance, which I was surprised, because I figured Rocky would want to to score the entire film since he is a composer, but he was very much like, no, this is your guys' segments. If you want to bring in, your own people to do it, by all means, go ahead. So I thought that was really cool, because I had thought maybe he'd be kind of like insulted that, somebody wanted to bring somebody else in, but no, he was like, no, man, this is everybody's project.
Now you ran into.
But I gotta say, I love the Trespassers soundtrack. I thought that was great.
Yeah, I was
really liked
impressed.
the synth vibe.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed with it all the way across the board. Now you ran into a problem. You had to play one of the characters in the barn. Did you have any problem? Did you have any problems finding anyone to play the hag? Is this a full body costume or?
Yeah, it's a full body. No, so
torso.
Yeah, it was a complete prosthetic face, and then blends into the neck, and then from the middle of the neck down all the way to the crotch is a full torso. It basically doesn't wrap around the entire body. It pretty much goes right underneath the armpits and down the side, and the dress kind of hides the rest of it. And then the rest we airbrushed to make like the veins and stuff. That was actually Jed Giacchino, and he is the same individual that we basically pulled in to do Jack and the Scarecrow in the barn. So when I started thinking about, because Jed's super skinny, I mean, it's just, he's like basically a skeleton with skin on him. So I was like, do you care if, you play a witch basically in this movie? And he's like, oh no, because he enjoys it. Very soft-spoken dude, very easy to get along with, and he'll do anything you ask. And he was like, no, that sounds like fun. And I said, okay, but you're going to have like breasts. Are you okay with that? And he's like, sure. And then, so it was funny. His ex-girlfriend at the time, she was there, and he couldn't do anything because he had these prosthetic fingers over top, and you could tell he had a dick. So we were like, yo, we need a dick wrangler. So his ex-girlfriend was there like, basically, tuck his junk up in his butt cheeks, and so you couldn't tell. So it looks like he's wearing like a huge diaper, and when they put all this stuff on to kind of like hide it, because you could just tell that there was a guy. But they did a really good job, the costuming and everything, to hide that. And then you see him go up the steps, and it literally, it's gross. I mean, he looks like an very old woman. But he was perfect for it. So you should see some of the behind the scenes photos. There's stuff where he's up on the bed when he's choking one of the actors, and he pretty much did a photo shoot, like an old Playboy shoot where he puts his arms up behind his head and he's pinching his nipples and stuff. It's really disturbing, but it's hilarious.
This is another movie. Had lots of great merch to this. You can go to screamteamreleasing.com. There's all kinds of good stuff on there. Real quick here, I warned you at the beginning. This may go long. I get kind of windy.
That's fine.
I just got a couple questions here. Answer. Don't put too much thought into it. Just whatever comes to mind. Your favorite subgenre of horror?
I pretty much like anything that has monsters in it. As long as there's something with monsters or the occult, it really has me pulled in to the story.
So like creature features and monsters?
Yeah, I'd say.
Let's see. Your next movie, if you could have any 3 actors in the world, living or dead, who would they be?
Oh, geez. Dead. Well, let's think about this here. I love Neve Campbell, so I would love to put her in something. And if I had that. Who else? Man, I was just talking to somebody the other day about this, and I was saying I wish I could make a movie with this person. I would love to. Now I'm blanking. Let's come back to that one.
All right.
Come back to that one. Let me think about that.
All right. Favorite director?
My favorite director was Wes Craven. It still is. But that's Wes Craven was basically the person I was like, that made me interested in what a director does, and why I wanted to get into it.
Okay. First horror movie you remember seeing in a theater?
In a theater, I think it was Night of the Living Dead, the Savini remake.
favorite horror album soundtrack?
Night of the Demons or Demons. It's a tie between those two. I really like those scores.
And last one. Any movie that has not been remade that you would like to see remade?
You know, I'm not big on remakes. I'll watch them, but I tend to just like the originals. I can't. Don't really think so. I was excited at one point when I heard, this was years ago, when I heard they may do a Monster Squad, but then the more I thought about it, I was like, it'll never live up to what I would want. So no.
Well, I mean,
I can't give you one.
Give me this one then. The worst horror remake.
The worst. I was not, and I'm probably going to catch shit for this. I was not a fan of the Friday the 13th remake. That and Nightmare on Elm Street, to be honest with you. I dug the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I really liked. I liked that story they went with, but Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, I wasn't. I just should have left it alone.
Yeah, I don't know who you're going to catch any shit from with those movies. I was really expecting you to say Night of the Demons, because I wasn't a big fan of that remake.
I was not either. I can appreciate it for trying. But yeah, I was excited when I saw the poster art and saw how they made Angela have like some pretty cool horns and stuff. But then when I watched it, it let me down. I tend to forget that they made that film. Nothing against those people. I know there's people that really like it. I would rather watch Night of the Demons 2 and 3 over the remake any day.
For sure.
But that's just me.
Well, just I guess one last thing. Do you is any upcoming projects in the making or in the future you'd like to talk about?
We're working on one called Cryptids right now. We're hoping to have it out by this October to start the festival circuit, and it's basically exactly what the title is. A bunch of stories about different cryptic creatures, people kind of like encounters, and it centers around a paranormal radio show where all the callers are chiming in about their experiences with different creatures and what happened. And we've got some really cool directors involved. We haven't released the details yet of who they are. They're shooting their segments now. We've got about half of it completed. But I hope from what I've seen, it's turning out really well. And this will probably be one of our, for a while, this will be one of our last anthologies that we work on, because we're going to go back into features. What I would like to say, though, is that speaking of 1031 and cryptids, I've had a lot of success with the barn, and a lot of independent filmmakers have reached out to me and asked me, like, how did you do this, and how did you get there, and how did you get the attention, and how did you make the sales, and it basically turned into people just being based, saying, would you want to sell my movie? And for the longest time, I was like, no, I'm not a distro company. I'm not, they got a horrible reputation, and, people, they burn filmmakers, and I've heard all the horror stories. I don't want to be associated. But then by some chance, about 2 months into selling 1031, Rocky contacted me and said, he goes, man, I totally underestimated this. He goes, I can't keep up with it. It's really more than I thought it would be. Would you be interested in just handling the sales for the movie like a distro? And I would have said no, but Rocky's become a good friend, and I wanted to help him. And, I have a lot of connections now through business accounts and things like that. So that basically started Scream Team Releasing. And since then, that was just the beginning of the year. I'm currently getting ready to put out a new feature from another filmmaker that'll be coming out on our site. We'll be announcing it here in about 2 weeks. It's going to be a Blu-ray DVD combo. I'm really excited. It's a re-release of a film that came out years ago that just didn't get a lot of attention, and I think now is the time for people to see it. And we have another film scheduled to come out in October that is a Halloween film from another filmmaker that I've met, and I'm really excited for him to get out there and meet people. And the whole goal of Scream Team Releasing is to finally get filmmakers money, because I'm a filmmaker. I know how to market movies. I know how to sell them. And I want to see other filmmakers succeed, because not everybody has the business sensibility. when it comes to the movie making. You know, you can make a movie, but not everybody knows how to sell it and handle sales and customer service and all that stuff. So basically, that's my plug for Scream Team. So if there's anybody out there, that has films that are Halloween, vibe or retro vibe, and you're looking for distribution, and you want to make a deal that's short term, and you want to see your money come back, hit me up. You can go to our site at screamteamreleasing.com at the contact, and also keep checking out the site, because there's going to be a lot of films coming up that aren't necessarily made by me or my team. There's going to be other people, stuff coming up, so you can meet and find out about films you've never heard of, and that I personally believe in, because I'm putting all of my own money into it to make the inventory for these individuals. So yeah, check it out. I highly recommend that you do that and keep supporting independent film and knowing that the money goes back to the artists.
That is
Sorry,
awesome.
big long rant.
No, that's fine.
I wanted to plug that.
I've already planned on plugging Scream Team, but you did it way better than I could have. So go to screamteamreleasing.com, check it out. Lots of good stuff on there, and you heard it from Justin himself. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming up in the future. Justin, I appreciate you taking this time. Sorry it ran a little long. We're definitely not, definitely not the most professional people over here, but we have fun doing what we do, and I appreciate your time, man.
Oh, well, thank you. And you know what? I've got the last two for you. I would like to work with Kevin Bacon and Edward Norton. The very very random, but those
three, huh?
Things I see in those people. Yeah, that's the three.
Yeah,
Nev Campbell, Edward Norton, Kevin Bacon.
I'd watch it.
So maybe not in the same movie, but I appreciate what they can do in certain things. So I think it'd be fun. Awesome. But yeah, man, this was awesome. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me and supporting indie films, and I'm glad that you saw something in the barn in 1031 that you enjoyed and made you want to talk to me.
That's awesome, man. Thank you.
You Leatherface do all the work. He don't like it, ain't that right? You're just a cook. Shut up, you bitch hog.
And that was Justin Seaman. Thank you, Justin, for your
Justin.
time.
That's good. Yes. We're going to talk about The Barn now. Directed and written by Justin Seaman from 2016. Here's the summary. It's Halloween, 1989. Best friends Sam and Josh are trying to enjoy what's left of their final Devil's Night before graduating high school, but trouble arises when the two pals and a group of friends take a detour on their way to a rock concert, finding an old abandoned barn and awakening the evil inside. Now it's up to Sam and Josh to find a way to protect their friends and defeat the creatures that lurk within the barn. That is an official fucking...
That's good.
That's from them.
Yeah.
That's a mouthful.
We got a tagline on Halloween nights: "The Legend of the Barn Awakens," distributed by Nevermore Production Films, and they also put this out on Blu-ray, which I picked up, and I just want to give a shout out to them because this is a low-budget horror movie, and the detail that they put into the release. You have reverse art. The special features that they have is just. It was actually hard. To think of questions to ask because they did such a well job of the making of that. Like they covered. They covered everything.
Yeah, I loved fucking everything about this movie. How it's framed, the soundtrack is so good that I will. And I saw it's released. And it looks really cool, like vinyl, like a really cool release of the soundtrack.
The merchandise.
Oh yeah,
that this movie has. Like I've never seen so much merchandise put out, right with the film. I mean, they cover everything. Go ahead though.
I just said I'll probably own everything about this. I wish I could play the game. I don't have one on a smartphone.
Yeah, I haven't played it yet.
It looks like a good side scroller, but yeah, it's definitely going to be part of my Halloween movie rotation now. Like every Halloween, this is just a great Halloween.
I think anyone that's ever watched this movie has said that same exact thing.
Yeah, the characters are great. The Boogeyman, Hollow Jack, and Candy Corn Scarecrow. They're some of the best original characters I've seen in a long time. Because normally you're just going to get something that is kind of like something you've already seen before. And these guys really aren't, as far as I mean, maybe you guys have seen something like these dudes before, but they definitely seem like bosses in a video game. Like, they set it up like there's different stages or areas that they're in control of. The pumpkin patch, what's the cornfield, and then the barn, essentially. But you can tell that Justin isn't just trying to make money off of the horror community.
No, he loves horror.
He nods a lot of different movies. I'm not sure if the lawnmower was a Dead Alive thing or not. It kind of thought it was gonna turn into that, but yeah, everything from the fucking Nevermore graphics at the beginning, the credit for the production company, the digital lightning.
Every time someone hits them, it's in there.
It's everything is 80s as fuck in this. The cameos from Linnea Quigley and Ari Lehman are cool, but the movie stands on its own legs. So, you know, it's something cool to throw in there. She looks rough as shit. I gotta be honest.
Yeah, I didn't recognize her right away, but
yeah.
The movie I'm used to seeing her in, it's a little bit different.
Well, we had watched something else recently that I watched Pumpkinhead 2. She's in that too, and she looks wonderful. But overall, I can't fault this movie for anything because it's just a fun Halloween treat for horror fans. If they make a sequel to this, it'll be fucking great.
I think he is.
I definitely look forward to more shit from the Nevermore company. So I give it a solid 8 out of 10. It could have. I think that if they would have made the kids a little younger, it might have benefited more, or maybe like give a shit about them more. I guess I just didn't seem.
I'll tell you what though, that the little blonde hair girl, that one shot where she smiles and looks over, she's creepy. That was a creepy little girl.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. So, what do you have? You guys want some?
Yeah. So it's a low budget indie horror, and it's crazy because I'm like, that's all I've been watching lately, and I think it's been well documented that I'm not the low budget horror guy, but I am when it's done well. This is an example of it, and it's also his debut film. So what a way to start your career off. But here's something that I think might blow your minds a little bit. He wrote this story when he was 9 years old. for a third grade project.
Wow.
Now he said it's a little bit different than what it was back then, but so I mean that shows you right there that he's into horror. Like he was into horror from the time he was a little kid, and it shows in this. It's a love letter to the 80s. It's very, very nostalgic. It just feels good. It just makes me feel good. The lore is awesome. The three the demons, you've already touched on them. The boogeyman, candy corn, scarecrow, Hollow Jack. The rules he has for Halloween.
Extensive,
I
really detailed.
Yeah, I love it. It has a real good pace. I was entertained right from the start, from start to finish. Practical effects. You always appreciate that. And this has. It's got to be 30 to 40 kills in it. So there's plenty of that to go around. It has an awesome soundtrack, which was written by Rocky Gray, the drummer for Evanescence.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I'll be damned. That's something else, man.
Yeah. You've already mentioned the cameos. This and the merchandise. Go check out, what is it? thebarnmerch.com. See for yourself all the stuff they have out for it. Great poster. I'll definitely have this poster on my wall. It looks good, feels good. The acting's good enough. I think something always suffers a little bit with low budget. I mean, something has to give.
It's hard to get really.
Something has to give. So the acting was good enough, but just a great story, very nostalgic, and Frank, like you said, and I think how everyone else has said. It's going to be in my rotation at Halloween. I gave it an 8.
I gave it a 6.
You would, Jared. This should have had the stamp of approval.
We would have had the fucking bells and whistles going off a trophy.
This should be a last Roundup or stamp of approval. It's going to be anyway.
He's over using that badge.
I'm gonna lower it down to what? So it'd be a 22 score of 22 overall.
And
Go ahead.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It hits on the 80s in a lot of great ways. It is low budget, so like Jason was saying, the acting isn't. I mean, it's not stellar performances. I think he hit everything. The thing I like most about it is, for what the budget feels. We talked about it on some other movies. Those movies can feel long, and this one goes right through. It didn't start dragging, which always impresses me in a low budget. I really liked the Harvest Party. I can't remember what it's called. And the Rockabilly Band. I thought the Rockabilly Band was great. That whole scene is fantastic. Everybody seems to like the three guys that come out. I definitely don't think they're bad, but that was one of the things. Like, I wasn't overly wowed by the monsters in it. The backstory to them was 80s throwback in a way, but again, it just didn't. I wasn't wowed. I had a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's a good Halloween movie, and I gave it a 6.
Very good.
Take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow.
Right?
Yes, we're going to the Reading Rainbow of Death. This month's author that I will be interviewing is Whinery. I believe that I said that right. The first book of his I read was The Little Dixie Horror Show. He has Phantasmagoria Blues, which I actually just got in the mail, if I can get out in front of this camera. Both anthologies. And he has a new book coming out this month from Muzzleland Press that is a Western horror Western called Trade Your Coffin for a Gun.
I like that. I like that title.
Yeah. From what I've talked to John about, it sounds really good. I'm looking forward very much to getting a hold of that one and reading that one. Little Dixie Horror, all his stuff, I had not Trade Your Coffin for a Gun, but Phantasmagoria Blues and Little Dixie Horror Show take place in a town in Oklahoma called Little Dixie. It has a very southern feel to everything. It's zombies and monsters, and there's something about it, and I haven't even been able to put my finger on it, that just kind of feels a little different. It's
Put
really,
that finger up your nose.
right there. Boom. It's really good horror, short fiction. I've enjoyed it. I'm really looking forward to reading a full length of his. So we'll be talking to him next episode, and a little trivia. Rab's book, Sheriff Kodo book, The Lesser Swamp Gods of Little Dixie, takes place in the Little Dixie of Whinery's world.
Oh, wow.
So there's a little crossover right there. But I highly recommend Little Dixie Horror Show, and probably Phantasmagoria.
What was the Western one?
Trade Your Coffin for a Gun.
And that's already out.
It's coming out in May. It's going to be the new book.
He should really push that to some studios, some movie studios. There seems to be a market out there for Western horror.
There you go, Murr. Jason's telling you, sell it to some studios.
And if you need an actor,
you
want to put a mask on me.
If you want to film it in Ohio.
What are you shaking your head at?
Nothing.
Put a mask on. Anyone out there I can't act, but I'll wear a mask.
I mean, what was that? If you need somebody to play Grover.
Well, no, that's like a Leatherface thing, man. Like, what's the sound Leatherface makes? Do it.
Far.
That's the sound. No, make a Leatherface sound.
It's not Grover.
Make it, motherfucker. I can't do it right either. That's what I was trying. Do it.
Well, I can't do it. I'd probably sound the same. That's why I didn't do it.
Before we move out of your section, I want to talk about. I listened to what's the podcast? The Muslin
Spook Lights,
the where you played the RPG
where we
game?
played Delta Green.
That is one of it's like 2 hours long, but I listened to the whole thing.
Yeah, that was a lot of
It's
fun.
really good. I suggest everyone goes and checks out that Spook Lights podcast.
I
where Jared,
totally got
What's the game?
it's
Delta Green. It's an RPG, but it's like
I gotta just
like
break it
You
down
can
for
play with people over the phone.
it's role playing like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
Dice
And-
rolling.
and-
Rab's telling a story. We're all agents of a undercover thing called Delta Green that deals with supernatural
It's
forces.
so fucking good.
And I
Jared
got
fucks
fucking-
up so bad.
I got drunk and staying in character.
Oh, God.
Like I got drunk and I jumped in and what could have just been and the game would have ended quick.
Yeah.
Like if I'd have just went along with everything, we'd have thrown a match in, the monster would have died, nothing would have happened, and nothing happened in the game. Instead, I got drunk and got everyone almost killed and all the surrounding civilians
It was
killed.
so good, man.
And then when everyone chased them, I actually rolled a 1. Which, when I go to chase and you roll a 1, it's an automatic fail. So I tripped and dropped my gun and was out of most of the game while they cleaned it up, and I was also drunk.
I figured we'd bring it up since we're a podcast, and you've been on there again too. Since then.
I just last week. I don't know when this will air, and I don't know when that will air. But I was just on a podcast on Spook Lights again last week.
Just check it. If nothing else, listen to the Delta Green. Is that what it's called?
Yes, Delta Green.
The Delta Green episode with Jared. It's fucking totally worth your time. I was listening to it and I was like, what the fuck's he doing? Because he was making bad choices.
I was.
But let's get into our last feature film here. 1031 from 2017. This also features our guest, Justin Seaman, as a director. It's an anthology movie, so it's got a lot of directors. Brett DeJager, Rocky Gray, Zane Hirschberger, John William Holt, Hunter Johnson, and Justin Seaman. The summary is basically it's a horror anthology presented by like an Elvira-style host named Malvolia. She brings you 5 different stories. Do you have any additional details on
It
this?
was distributed by Red Letter Entertainments, and this was put out on DVD as well as VHS. This has the soundtracks on CD, and it has, I think, a couple different posters for it as well.
Yeah, I've seen several. The movie starts out and introduces you to the horror host Malvolia, who's an actual horror host on YouTube. She has a whole channel.
It felt very natural.
Yeah, and I think everybody can get on board with like a buxom horror host like that. No, you weren't on that?
No, I thought you were going to touch on
On them titties.
well,
But she's it always goes there, man. Anyway, she's showing these kids are watching this show, and it goes into the first story, which is the Justin Seaman story, The Old Hag. I thought that The Old Hag was one of the most solid stories in the collection. It really makes you feel uneasy. I assume if you went to bed and breakfasts, you wouldn't want to do it anymore because it's fucking weird. I think the only thing I have to say about it is the hag would have been more effective with less makeup, but it was a dude in there, so that that's what it is. Trespasser was a story about a scarecrow. It was kind of confusing. Could have probably been really good if it had a longer.
how about we just
mean,
slow down a little bit?
How do you want to do
touch
this?
on each?
Okay,
each
well, let's
story?
talk about the old hag first.
Okay.
Basically, the story is these 2 videographers are being paid on Halloween, for whatever reason, to come to this woman's house and talk about shooting an advertisement for her bed and breakfast. Things start going weird, and one of the
Well, it was a good time to do it because they didn't have any guests on
Right.
Halloween.
Yeah,
They always mess stuff up.
Yeah, so the one of the camera guys starts seeing stuff, and things take a turn for the worse. It really, like, that whole building is really creepy. I can't imagine staying in a bed and breakfast.
It's a very cool house.
Yeah. He just keeps seeing things out of the corner of his eye. Weird shit's happening, and at the end, I think everybody dies, right? So, both the dudes die, and the woman finally can get to sleep because she can't sleep.
Right.
Then you want to move on to the next story?
No, I just want to touch on a few
okay.
things. We mentioned the house, the Montgomery Mansion, being a bed and breakfast. I think it was a very cool setting. The house alone created some atmosphere. The old hag I thought looked great, and it appears to be like almost a full body costume.
It is.
Yeah. So I thought she looked creepy. I thought it was great. Again, really good music. The acting was good. It had some great shots. I think, being the second thing that I've seen from Justin Seaman, I can start to see his style.
Yeah, for sure.
He has a style to him. I didn't like rate like each segment, but I thought for sure this one stood above the rest. I'm guessing that's kind of why they had it the first.
It's a good way to start the movie off.
But I did kind of rate them in my head as I was watching them, and I think it was almost in chronological order.
Oh, really?
As they went on. I don't know if that's the way they did that, if they intended to do that. Maybe 4 and 5 switch places, but
yeah, this is one of the strongest segments.
yeah, it was my favorite story for sure.
Jared, what did you think about the first segment? Anything?
Yeah, I thought it was one of the. I think my two favorites from it were the first one and then the roller skating.
Yeah,
one.
that was a really strong one.
Those are the two standout ones. And again, it's low budget horror, but it's done in a way that you can tell watching it, but it doesn't feel like it. Like a lot of the common things you expect from low budget horror, which is great ideas in shitty made movies. This is really cool ideas done well, just without the money to polish. So, and I think most of them, we're not getting too far in it. I think the last one was the only one that I kind of,
Really?
yeah.
Well,
But yeah, the old hag, was that what it was called?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name. Old hag and the roller skating rink one were
Yeah.
definitely the two that stood out the most.
The one that comes after the old hag is called Trespassers. It's basically about what is it? A couple that are going out to see some old scarecrow that has.
They're on a date. They go to a movie that sucked. I think they may even walked out on it.
Right.
So they want to do something else. It's Halloween. She wants to get scared.
Yeah. So they go out to this old house that has a scarecrow that has lore about it. I think that this could have been fucking awesome if it was a whole full length movie. Like if they had time to flesh out what exactly was happening, because I have no idea what fucking happened in this segment, aside from the thing comes to life and kills him, and then he becomes the thing, or what? It's just confusing.
This was Zane Hirschberger's, by the way.
This wasn't one of my favorite segments. I mean, it was all right. It was strong. It wasn't as strong as the old hag or Killing the Dance, which is my favorite segment, I think. But it was all right. You got anything on this one?
Yeah. First of all, I don't know. I guess I love scarecrows in movies.
Right.
I just think that they're creepy, and they always remind me. They just automatically give you the feel of fall time, Halloween. The music in this one was great. Scarecrow looked good. It was a decent story. Had some gore to it. The acting kind of takes a step back a little bit. I think this was my second best segment in it. And I was a little confused why the first Scarecrow had on. I think he was wearing a leather jacket. I was like, why? You're making a scarecrow, like that's a cool iconic figure, and then you put a leather jacket on him. But like you said, whoever gets killed, whatever they're wearing, they go up as a scarecrow. So yeah, that made sense.
I think it would have been like if they could have taken, because they had like a thing about a family, like that old family that was supposed to own that property. If they would have had time to make that a whole movie, they could have done a whole fucked up weird thing where that was like the fucking. Like a whole religion around it or whatever, all kinds of shit. But it was a strong segment. Anything else on that one? You want to move on? Anyone? The third segment is Killing the Dance. This is definitely my favorite segment.
Jason Turner's.
It's about some kids, or they're closing down they're closed the roller rink for the night for like a private Halloween party, right? And it turns out that there's a killer in the midst, and what really creepy fucking cowboy costume. That was the thing that really made me like love it. I was like, that's a fucked up costume, and to have a straight razor as the weapon, and just there's a lot of blood and crazy shit in this segment. I loved it a lot. And the twist at the end of it was that it was the mother the whole time. Ouch!
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Should have said that beforehand.
No, we all of our shows are spoilers. So if you don't know that by now,
yeah. So what do you think about this one?
Well, speaking of costumes, did you pick up on all the Karate Kid costumes?
No, I didn't. Actually.
Like the Cobra Kai, they wear those skeleton. The skeleton costumes,
right.
And then they even had Ralph's shower. He's a shower for their Halloween thing, and this was even in it. So I thought that was pretty funny. Some Easter eggs there, I guess.
I fucking forgot about the very end. I forgot the mom.
Okay,
the mom has the twist, and then there's the son who blows her head up. Holy fuck! I fucking forgot all about that. That just popped in my head. I had to say something about it. The kid pulls his mask off, and he's like a. What do you say the proper term for it is the thing?
I have telekinetic monster.
Yeah, he looks like Jason Voorhees, kind of, but he blows the mother's head up. Oh, it's fantastic. Anyways, continue, Jason.
Anyway, I thought the skating rink was a cool setting. It was something different.
Takes you back to Skateland.
Don't see too many of them.
Yeah, everybody skate.
But a lot of the segment was just people skating around. It was getting to be a bit much, a bit long, just skating.
They
around.
ride the suspense.
But
a lot.
yeah, like they are panning back and forth. I get it. The music helps pace this segment, and yeah, it pays off at the end with the twist. Mikey, the brother, ends up being a telekinetic monster, and the mom ends up being the cowboy. I think this is probably the third. My third
So you're
favorite segment.
literally going right
Yeah,
now.
like I said, but I think maybe 4 and 5 might
Yeah,
be
I can
switched.
see how that happens. Did you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, this was the other one. Like I said, this one and the first one were kind of tied for my two favorite, and this one was a little bit crazier, and the payoff I thought was strong.
It
but
had to have that payoff.
the reason this wasn't my favorite is what you had said. There's a little too much of people. It just feels people like people skating. The first one is smoother. It's more
Polished.
Yeah. The story in a whole. This one, the story isn't through it is gets a little slow, but the payoff I felt was really strong.
So yeah, and like I think what the girl that was skating around, I guess she was going to go home with that one chick.
Yeah.
Like they just it was just her skating around, but she looked good, so I understand it.
But yeah, it like the strong points of this one and the weak points of this one, and then the first one, they kind of level out, so they're tied for me. But those are the two. Those are the two I think are most noteworthy.
The next segment is called the Halloween Blizzard of '91. Do you have the director on this?
It's the Brett D. Yeager.
Okay. This one I fucking didn't like at all. I did not like it. Keep Santa Claus out of my Halloween movies for fuck's sake. And also decide, is it the trick-or-treating kids that are doing the damage, or is it Santa Claus? Because I need you to decide on what it is. And also keep Santa Claus out of my Halloween movies. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's all you got to say?
That's all I gotta say. It wasn't my cup of tea.
The shots from the outside of the house, looking at the house, I thought looked cool. With the snow falling, obviously they had that CG, but I don't know. I liked that. That was a good shot. The sister-in-law, all right, is walking around the house in her panties, and like everyone's cool with that.
That's what you
Well,
do.
I think the guy almost he would have fucked her. Probably.
He did. He was.
He
Yes,
did a little
was
bump.
trying-
Do you
yeah.
like
Well,
give her
you
a little
don't walk
bump?
around in your panties. I mean, that's the
That's the rule of the house.
don't walk around in your panties. Speaking of the Santa Claus, I thought he looked really good. I thought the Santa Claus looked better than what most Santa Clauses do in
that's
Christmas
true.
movies.
Yeah, but keep it in the Christmas horror. I mean, put it in the.
Okay, I could.
I don't
Yeah,
mind Christmas
I can agree.
horror, but this is a
I can
Halloween
agree.
movie, dude.
Yeah, I can kind of agree with that. But yeah, I was a little confused on the story as well. Like Santa saves the good kids, and the bad kids.
Yeah, it's like if you
love Halloween.
if you love if you
I'm a little
love
confused.
Christmas, Santa Claus is going to come and like help you out. And if you love Halloween, you're fucking dead, brother.
Yeah, the acting is rough in this.
The quality dropped off, I thought, quite a bit.
Yeah, I think I have this down as my fourth favorite, but again, 4 and 5 can kind of switch places. So, Jared,
Yeah, I thought it was a fun idea. I'm not as against the idea as Frank is.
yeah, he's really like I don't. You got something against Santa.
It's
I don't like Christmas at all.
I mean,
usually.
it was mixed in with the Halloween. Like
Yeah, and I enjoyed.
they were
all
kinda
the-
fighting
all-
each other.
All
Yeah,
the
like,
Christmas movies we watched are great.
It's a
I love
fun
them,
idea over things we all know. Like, you know, people that like Halloween more than Christmas, and we know people who have. I mean, no one's fought about it, but yeah, I've heard the conversations of why one's better. That you know, and it's a fun idea to explore. It wasn't explored. It wasn't explored in a way that made me turn it off, but also not in a way that.
Did you understand what was going on?
Yeah, it's. I think the overall idea is it's just Christmas versus Halloween. Nitpicking the specifics of it is defeatist.
Like I felt like it was right there, and I felt stupid for like not quite understanding. But
No,
I-
there was
like-
no connection. I don't know what happened.
It's again, it's an indie low budget horror version of the idea of Christmas versus Halloween. I think going into it any further is
I think time restraints had a lot of like effect on these segments. Like, oh, we got this much time. Fuck.
yeah. Again, and like you guys was, I mean, I would switch. 1 and 3 are kind of tied for me. Then it's 2, 4, and 5.
at the
They're just
same
kind of-
time, though, you only have
Yeah.
to make a good movie for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah, so it's a funny idea.
I just thought it was a-
It was a funny enough idea that kept me entertained enough that I went right on into 5. So I mean,
see, and for me, they could have removed it, and it would have made it like a much better movie.
well, let's talk about the fifth one.
The fifth one is called the Sam Hain Slasher. And this one, I'm surprised you guys don't have this higher than you do, because I thought it could have, like, if they take this, they could have made this a franchise. I think that character is strong enough to do that.
Did you hear my stomach rumble?
yes.
I was wondering.
You get a sandwich in this guy.
Let's go.
Lost
But
it.
This is a very, I think it's a strong segment. And there's a reason they use this for a lot of the artwork, I think, because the character could be its own thing. But you guys felt differently? What were the downfalls for this for you guys? Just standard generic slasher.
Nothing grabbed me. I have good music. I was lost with this story as well. Between the Sam Hain killer and all the supernatural stuff that happened, I almost felt like, just pick one and roll with that.
You got 15 minutes.
Yeah, like just
You
just-
only need one.
the killer's cool. The killer's cool enough, and supernatural stuff's cool on its own. So I don't know. And it had some cool effects.
Yeah, I think a lot of these segments people were trying to get, like some of these segments in these anthologies have been made into full-length movies. Like you could just watch Terrifier or whatever. Wasn't that from an anthology originally?
Yeah, All Hallows Eve.
Yeah, so it can happen.
And
So-
there's another low-budget horror movie. It seems like that's all I've been watching lately. And I should have checked this out because I'm seeing it on paper now. Like I think the music's good in every segment. So there it is again.
you need some fucking sandwiches.
I wonder if maybe the same guy did the
Might
music over all of them.
have. But yeah, for me, it was the bottom. It's cool stuff and just executed in a way that was. I don't know that. I don't know that 4 was better than 5, but
I'll probably switch it every time I watch it.
it had a more original idea, I guess, than what was going on, and 5 might make a better 5 would definitely make a better movie if you had a concise movie put out of it. But
Yeah.
you know, then 4, but it kind of bored me, I guess.
But I give this a 9 because I think it's one of the best overall horror anthologies I've ever seen. I haven't watched a lot of them though.
Wow.
You've probably seen a lot more, but I think this is stronger than Creepshow 2, and Creepshow 2 is a pretty good anthology. I think. I mean, think of the segments in Creepshow 2. There's the wooden
I really
chief.
like Creepshow too.
There's the wooden chief, which is all right.
Which is great. Which is great.
What other segments are in that movie?
Well, let's not get on Creepshow.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, I liked it more than Creepshow 2.
Okay.
Not more than Creepshow 1, but definitely more than Creepshow 2.
I really liked the what's her name, Malvolia.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
I think they could have worked her in between each segment instead.
Surprised they didn't.
I think she was in the beginning and the end, but no, I would have worked her.
Just stop there.
Any chance you could get her in there?
Come on now, we're professionals here. No, I would have worked her in between the segment.
It would have made more sense if they would have worked her in between the segments. Just work her out.
Jesus Christ. I apologize to whoever the actress
Oh,
is.
hashtag me too.
No, I liked it. It was great music overall. Some segments were a little weak, but I think you have that in any anthology. Overall, I thought the stories were good. And again, it's a Halloween anthology, so I'm going to bring this out every October for sure. I gave it a 6.
I am with Jason as well. I too gave it a 6. Anthologies are not high on. I'm not big on anthologies. I don't dislike them, but I can't think. Trick or Treat, I think, is the only one I can think of that.
I love anthologies.
Yeah, I think it's the only one I
give you
can.
a big old list of them.
I think it's the only one I can think of that I've ever watched that I was like, and nothing against the things in anthologies, but when you do an anthology as a whole, it's like anything. It's like a book or whatever. You're going to get some good ones, and you're going to get some stinkers. So anthologies are tough to, on a whole, be like, that's really good. Trick or Treat is one of the few that I like that movie beginning to end. The Halloween theme, I think, might be in it too, because I found that this is a stronger one for me than other anthology movies, and it might be because I like the idea of Halloween stories
Love them.
as a little bit. So I think the Halloween vibe works for this. So I would probably watch this again before most other anthologies that I've watched, other than Trick or Treat. But in the end, it's like, in the end, there are some that are really worth watching. But I think after you watch it once, there are some you won't watch the second or third time. You might
I'd probably just watch them all.
Yeah.
Yeah, too lazy to fast forward.
Yeah.
But
So-
no, none of them were that bad.
But yeah, I give it a 6, and this and The Barn, actually, I've given some low budget stuffs 5 or 6. The difference between these two, I've been scoring these more on what I would give something, not considering how low the budget is. So take that into consideration. I'm judging these more as the movies that aren't that low budget than like slashers. I mean, I gave slashers a 5. Slashers doesn't touch either of these two. It's way it's bad compared to these two. I'm judging that one as a trash movie. These are low budget movies that I think you can rate and compare on. Not saying I'm going to forgive them for the budget. You don't have to. They're good enough. I felt they shouldn't be forgiven for the budget because they were made by people who kind of knew what they were doing. So, but yeah, I gave this one a 6 too.
All right. Well, there we go, guys. That's another episode in the fucking books. Do we have picks? You got picks?
I got picks.
What's your next movies?
I will be picking the Banshee chapter, which I found out about on the last episode of Spook Lights I was a guest on, and I will also be picking The Hills Run Red, which is a movie I bought years ago and watched and can't remember, and I saw it in my DVDs, and I said
That might be bad because
I'm gonna watch that one again.
I know I've seen it as well, and I can't remember much about it.
Yeah, so it must not be terrible.
You'd remember it if it was terrible.
No, yeah, I don't remember it being terrible.
But I know it's got what's his name from Demon Knight among other things.
Billy Zane.
No, not Billy Zane. The
Thomas Hayden Church.
is he the guy that was the soldier, the blonde guy?
He's the guy from Wings. Lowell.
No, not Lowell. He's the guy that had lived a long time.
Okay.
That is dumping the blood in it.
About.
It's got him in it.
Okay.
Whatever his name is.
Do you have your picks for next time?
Go ahead and.
I'm gonna pick.
Still working it out in my head.
I'm gonna pick Bad Taste. Have you guys seen Bad Taste?
Yes.
It's kind of a classic in some circles. I like it a lot, but I'd like to rewatch it and give it a full-fledged review. It's a Peter Jackson movie. And then another movie, I don't know if it's good or not. I just have seen it a few times.
I bet it's not.
I know they had it. I've seen it on Netflix a few times. I've almost clicked on it. They've got a sequel out. It's called Boys and Trees.
Seen it.
That's my second pick, so we'll see what that's all about.
That has a sequel to it?
Yeah, Boys and Trees 2. It's either coming out or it's out already.
So I guess I'm going to keep on the low budget indie horror stuff on Amazon Prime. It's on YouTube as well. Going to do the Witching season. I believe I'm also going to be doing an interview with those guys. And then for my second pick, I hadn't thought about it, so I'm just going to throw it off the top of my head. Something I got recently. In Pieces. Or Pieces.
Pieces.
Not
Pieces.
Pieces.
That's a
The old one.
70s
Yes.
classic. So
Nice.
you can look forward to that stuff. I hope people are watching this shit with us. Check out the group, Last Roundup Horror Show podcast on Facebook. You can check us out on Twitter. Seems to be growing for some reason. I don't know why. We're like over 300 likes
on
or
Twitter.
follows. Yeah,
Twitter's happening.
I don't even have a Twitter
It's
account.
at LRHS Pod, I believe. It's Twitter. I don't understand Twitter. We just people keep following us, and our YouTube is linked up to it. So some of our shit's getting out there.
You got Facebook linked to it?
No,
I
don't
think you
believe
can
so.
do that. Dusty did that with Bones. I made a Bones Twitter here about a month ago and then found out that we've had a Twitter account for
I've seen
6 years.
That's what was funny because a lot of your posts go directly on there. And
Yeah, he's got it hooked up to where when you do posts, it goes straight to
yeah.
Twitter.
So you've
So
been
maybe-
posting on Twitter and not even realized it.
No idea. I made up a whole separate Twitter account for it and was like, hey, we're on Twitter now. And Dusty was like, we have been for 6 years.
Yep.
Huh.
But yeah, thanks for watching and listening and all that shit. We'll see you next time, guys.
Bye.